Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk to you guys about secret societies. I really have Sydney to thank for this idea. Um, I don't know if you listened to my last and first video that I did where I talked about Sydney and Paul and I met her at the restaurant, and the whole discussion of her being a witch came about by us asking about her necklace, which was a pentagram. So keep in mind the pentagram because I'm going to come back around to talk about that. If you were to have asked me, say, 5 years ago, what I knew about Freemasons, I would say probably something like it's probably like a Christian organization that raises money and does charitable work. I recognized their symbol and I knew that they met in lodges and, all that kind of sort of thing. But I didn't know anybody who was a Freemason, or so I thought. About 3 years or so ago, I did a study on secret societies. And, the truth shines light and exposes what lurks in the dark. And you all probably know I have a natural curiosity as a truth seeker. But the more I was studying God's Word, the more I was understanding just how sneaky and deceptive the things of the world are that are luring us away from the one true God by getting us to believe what we were told because there's just enough truth mixed in to make it attractive enough that we don't even question anything. Boy, was I challenged to rethink some of what I believed about the world as I learned more about these societies and began to understand just how far and deep their deceptive tentacles go. I don't know if you guys know anything at all about any of these societies or, the names of them, but here's a few that you might recognize. The Order of Skull and Bones, Bilderberg Group, the Illuminati, and the Freemasons. Those are just a few. You might even be rolling your eyes right now saying, oh, that's all just conspiracy theory stuff. I've done my own going down a lot of rabbit holes, and you guys are free to do the same and come up with your own conclusions as to what these societies are really all about. But it's the Freemasons that I want to talk about because I found out some stuff that left me with just more questions that will never be answered because the people I want to talk to are no longer with us, namely my mother and my grandparents, her mom and dad. So when I was studying about Freemasons, I also learned about Order of the Eastern Star, which is an offshoot of Freemasonry. And Freemason is kind of the thing for men, and the Order of the Eastern Star is for women. And so you guys know I'm really good about taking the scenic route when I like to talk about things and they become stories and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm going to spare you all the details of how I came to discover, that some of my family was involved in these, other than to say that there were a few God winks along the way that helped me confirm some suspicions that I had. I'm always here to answer any questions if you want to know more. I never knew my grandfather. He died when my mom was 25 before she was ever married. And the only thing that I knew about him was he was the accountant at the coal mine in Dawson, New Mexico, where my mom was born. That's all I knew. No one ever talked about him, which I think was just really weird because, he died when my mom was 25. So, he was young too. And, but my grandmother lived way beyond his death up into her 90s. And I never heard anything about him. So about 3 years ago, after discovering that he had been a Freemason, that got me wondering about my mom and my grandmother, Nanos. Since I'd learned the Order of the Eastern Star was connected to Freemasonry. But it wasn't until probably maybe 6 months, 7 months ago, somewhere around there, that, I was able to confirm my suspicions. So I found this little green book belonging to my mom. And it was in one of the trunks. And so I opened it up, and sure enough, her name's in there, McClary, her maiden name, Dawson, New Mexico, and she paid $1.25 for this book. So I opened it up, and sure enough, here we go, the new ritual of the Order of the Eastern Star. And then this little card in there showing that she belonged to the Juanita chapter, and this was from 1947. Next up, I see a pentagram that looks like the necklace that Sydney the Witch was wearing. Of course, I had some questions. Why the heck did my mom have this ritual book with a picture of a pentagram like Sydney the Witch? And what the heck is this ceremony ritual thing all about? I want to back up just a little bit and give you guys a little background on Freemasons and Eastern Star. So I'm just going to read a few things here. The Masons, it is one of the oldest fraternal organizations in the world. They claim it's a self-improvement association that focuses on fellowship, moral discipline, and mutual assistance, committed to bettering themselves and their communities. The Masons used to trace their origin back to Nimrod, who appears in the book of Genesis of the Bible. He was the founder of a kingdom which included the city of Babel and the famous Tower of Babel. So it was around 1700 when the Masons decided to adopt a new view of their origin because, being associated with Nimrod isn't such a great thing. And they wanted, they were concerned with their social respectability, and they had really no desire to threaten the establishment. So they rejected that. And, the Tower of Babel is a pagan belief system constructed in open defiance of heaven because the Tower of Babel was related to the occult. And the Tower of Babel is where the first false religion started, and is the origin of the mystery religions which spread to the surrounding world. Today, occult groups recognize the Masons as being related to them. So it's not surprising that some Masons wanted to trace their origin instead from King Solomon and not Nimrod. So they now claim their origin has to have begun with King Solomon, and they now explain that the traditions of the lodge are founded upon the building of King Solomon's temple, and its fraternal ceremonies use the working tools of stonemasons to symbolize moral lessons of brotherly love, relief, and truth. So you guys might recognize their symbol, which is this right here. So that's the square and the compass that are architects' tools and are used in Masonic ritual as emblems to teach symbolic lessons. So there's all these different levels within Masonry, these degrees, and there's various signs, tokens, and secrets that are made known to the Mason as he graduates and moves ahead, on the up these degrees. So sometimes there's a G in this compass thing, and sometimes they're not. And it really, depends upon whose interpretation of what the G means. Christians would traditionally interpret that as the symbol as God, where others within the order would define it as knowledge or gnosis, Gnosis. So there is a great deal of secrecy in Freemason. From the beginning, people are kept in the shadows regarding the full meaning of Masonry's symbols and ceremonies, and only receive further enlightenment as he rises through the degrees. Each Mason must swear a series of oaths to keep the secrets of the craft as he learns them. And then he also agrees to severe penalties if he ever discloses them. So, is Masonry a religion? They claim that it is not. However, they do require their members believe in a supreme being. So here's some stuff on the Eastern Star. Eastern Star is a society designed for the wives, daughters, and female relatives of men affiliated with Masonry. It was prepared by Dr. Rob Morris, who was a leading Mason and Masonic author. He was considered by many to be the most learned Mason of the day, and he received his distinguished title of Master Builder of the Order of the Eastern Star in 1880. Eastern Star originated in order to introduce the daughters, wives, and other relatives of Master Masons to basic Masonic worldview to ensure the personal environment of the Mason becomes a support and encouragement for his own involvement in Masonry. This founder, Dr. Morris, considered the gods of all religions the same God under different names. But the official website of Eastern Star says that the purposes of the organization are charitable, educational, fraternal, and scientific. And they supposedly promote moral values and personal goodness, building an order which is truly dedicated to charity, truth, and loving kindness. So, the Star is regarded by Masonic women as a fine Christian institution within Masonry. They even sing classic hymns like How Great Thou Art. And their motto and guiding verse for the Order of the Eastern Star is believed to be Matthew chapter 2, verse 2, which I'm sure you've all heard of the verse, kind of the Christmas one with the wise men. We have seen his star in the east and are coming to worship him. However, the scripture does not say Eastern Star. It says star in the east. These are two completely different things. The Eastern Star was long known as Sirius, the dog star, or the star of the Egyptian god of chaos, Set, S-E-T. Set, also referring to Lucifer, is the acknowledged god of Masonry. This is so deceptive, these word games. The symbol of the order is the upside-down five-pointed star or pentagram, and that the pentagram is also the symbol of the Church of Satan and a well-known symbol of the occult. So this is the Eastern Star one here. That's Mason's Order of the Eastern Star. The points on the star are related to 5 historical women in the Bible. And so these ceremonies and all this ritual stuff, has to do with these women of the Bible. And so, all these things are dedicated to these women, but instead of giving preference to the Christian God, the reverence and symbolism afforded these women takes the focus away from the reverence for God. And there's also things like associated with these, women in the Bible. There's associated colors, patron virtues and seasons, and special symbols that are usually associated with pagan gods and goddesses, similar in Greek or Roman worship. And it's important to understand that, this whole worshiping of a supreme being, you can pick whatever you want. However, you're throwing in the women of the Bible and doing all this other stuff, and but it doesn't include Jesus when they're doing all this stuff. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you a few things in this ritual book that belonged to my mom. And anyway, from some of the things, I'm just going to pull out a few things, not read a whole bunch, but you can decide for yourself if there's any truth to why they are referred to as a secret society. So let's see here. Oh, hold on. This is in their opening ceremony, and I'm not even going to bother. You guys probably can't see that. So anyway, I'll just read it. Sister conductress, you will attend at the altar. The chapter is called up. The conductress approaches the altar between Ruth and Esther, makes a slight bow, opens the Bible, gives the sign of salutation to the open book, and steps back into the circle of star officers between Ruth and Esther facing east, remaining in that position until the worthy matron seats the chapter when she returns to her station. Okay, that sounds creepy weird already. Life is a labyrinth through which we would wander blindly if it were not for an all-seeing eye, right here, that watches over us and an all-powerful hand that guides us on our way. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the all-seeing eye. You know, it's a pretty common symbol, you know, in the occult. And, you know, Hollywood's so famous for all their celebrities, you know, doing the whole all-seeing eye thing. And, you know, I pulled off a picture so you can see if you're not familiar. But, you know, they'll cover one eye, either with like their hand or an object or their hair or whatever. And sometimes they'll do the, you know, the formation of their fingers to represent 666. So, and here's some more. Kind of looks like that. And then, interestingly, and you may already know this, but if you look on the back of our dollar bill, you'll also see an all-seeing eye right here. And again, I will let you do your own research and go down your own rabbit holes and see what that's all about in connection with Freemasonry. Okay, so this order is founded on a belief of in the existence of a supreme being that rules the universe for good, and no one can become a member of the order who does not hold this belief. Therefore, before I can guide you to the chapter room, you must give me a brief and truthful answer to the following question. Do you believe in the existence of a supreme being? Okay. So I would hope that my mom and my grandmother would have said Jesus when asked that question. But maybe another person would have said Allah or Buddha. You know, I know many people would rather worship the creation instead of the creator. And so, heck, maybe they worship a tree. I guess that would go. Like, if you truly believe that, I guess that would go too. You just have to believe in something. Let's see here. This is also in the initiation ceremony. You have doubtless well considered the step you have taken in seeking admission to this order dedicated to charity, truth, and loving kindness. You came here of your own free choice. Complain not, therefore, at any trial. A seal is here set upon your lips. Let it warn you to be ever silent and secret as to all that is made known to you here. Then it goes on with a couple woes. Woe to you, woe to you. And then it goes into a scripture verse. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths. Okay. By means of secret signs and other work of the order, we are able to make ourselves known to each other wherever we may meet. So then this is also in the initiation ceremony, and it looks like it's from these 5 points on the star and these historical biblical women, and they go through this like repetitively through each point on the star. So, it says something like, the sign of this degree is given by, and then there's a little note here that says, repeat from secret work. So it does that, I'm guessing 5 times for each of these points on the star. And then in the installation ceremony, I'll just read you one little thing in here. It says, an open Bible must always be upon the altar. Okay. You promise that no visitor will be admitted to your chapter to witness the secret work of the order unless found legally entitled to do so, and that none will be admitted who will injuriously affect the peace and harmony of the chapter. There's some more pentagrams. Worthy patron, I present to you the secret work and the diagram of the labyrinth, both of which you must guard with the utmost secrecy. Then in the back of the book, there's kind of just general regulations, and I thought this was just interesting. There's one point that says, its lessons are scriptural, its teachings moral, and its purposes beneficial. And right underneath that, after it says, its lessons are scriptural, it says, its obligations are based upon the honor of those who obtain its secrets. Okay. And then there's a little section on secret work that says, the printing or engraving of all or of any portion of the secret work in any way or manner is a violation of the obligation and is positively prohibited. So the last thing I wanted to show you was this chapter room diagram of the layout of how all these rituals are supposed to, everybody's got to be in the right place, facing the right direction, blah, blah, blah. So it says, position of the chairs. The chairs for the star officers may either face the east or be partially turned toward the altar. And I'm guessing this is the altar here. Here's the pentagram with the 5 points with the historical women, Ruth, Esther, Martha. I can't remember the other 2. But anyway, and it just took me back looking at this and, going through this book and seeing, it's creepy. But it reminded me of when we were talking to Sydney at the restaurant, The Witch. And she was telling us that, she would do all these rituals and sit in a circle on the floor, with candles and do all kinds of stuff. And, when I saw this, all I could think about was, her somehow just kind of sitting in the middle here of this, kind of like this, with her candles and all that. Anyway, I found this interesting as I was, getting some history on Eastern Star and all, but it did say, bowing before the altar of the star, the inverted pentagram of Satan, one can innocently give Satan an entry point into their life. Most women doubtlessly assume they are worshiping Jesus as they kneel around a huge satanic pentagram, assuming that this is Jesus' star when it's actually Set's star or Lucifer's star. Many people join groups like the Masons or Eastern Star for reasons such as family tradition or a desire to make friends or belong to a community group. Deceptive practices, pagan beliefs, spiritual intimidation, secrecy, and the denial of Christian truth are taught. The Bible commands us to test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. That's from 1 John 4:1. Jesus' earthly ministry was very public. He did not shroud his purpose in mystery. He was open and honest with everyone regarding his teaching and his lifestyle. He did not create secret codes or secret handshakes for a select few. He made himself and his grace available for all. So, why did I feel it was so important for me to tell you guys this? Well, the reason is because honestly, I can't say for certainty what my mom and my grandparents believed. You know, I grew up and we didn't talk about this stuff. You know, we went to church usually Christmas and Easter. I can remember getting my new Easter dress and my Easter shoes, and but we didn't talk about eternal stuff. We didn't talk about God, Jesus. You know, didn't read the Bible, anything like that. You know, just went about life like most people do. And it wasn't till well, let me say this first. You know, I was able to confirm, you know, that my mom had been involved with this because I have her book with her name in it. And there was a pin that the you know, this pen here, like that, that apparently belonged to my grandfather. But I didn't have any confirmation, like, you know, was my grandmother, you know, really involved? But I had to assume that because, you know, if her daughter was, I would kind of think she was too. But, you know me, I love to do my research. And so I enlisted Google to help me. And within just a few minutes, I had that confirmation. And I did remember, and it is in this book as well, there are kind of like a funeral service for Eastern Star, and there's the same thing for the Masons. They kind of have their own, you know, special funeral service. But I do remember when I did the study that oftentimes on headstones they would have Masonic symbols. And so I thought, well, I'll just see if I can find their headstone and see what's on it. Sure enough, here I found, and I'm sure I have this picture at home somewhere. I just wasn't going to go through my stuff, but here's my grandfather on the left with his Masonic Freemason symbol, and Nanos with her upside down pentagram thing. And there's some faint little letters around that, but you know, they're kind of hard to see. So, yeah, I wonder. I really wonder, you know. You know, my hope is that, you know, they were just innocently involved because, you know, it sounded good, it seemed upstanding, and it seemed to promote good things, and they wanted to have fellowship with, you know, other people working toward a common goal. I know I've gotten involved in things that I later found out didn't line up with my beliefs, and you know, as I'm maturing, as you know, in my Christian walk, and continue to do so, it's His light that shines in the dark and reveals the truth. And you know, Satan is so good at blending, you know, the lie with some truth sprinkled in, you know, so it sounds like a good thing and people don't question anything. And so anyway, so I wanted to share that with you. And of course, you know, I got curious about my parents' headstones too. Like, what the heck's on those? You know, I didn't pay attention to any of that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I wanted to share with you guys, you know, it wasn't until my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And my dad had retired just about that same time. And he just became her 24/7 caregiver. And I am so thankful that I had the opportunity to witness just how my dad was ministering to my mom. And probably knowing that she was not going to live for much longer, I'm sure he started thinking about his own mortality. And I do believe that these eternal things became much more of a focus and a priority and importance to him, not only for himself, but also to make sure my mom knew the truth. And so I would go down like every other weekend, would drive down and I would help him with my mom. And, over a course of a number of months, I just saw these changes. And it was such a beautiful thing to see. And he was reading to my mom from the Bible. He had this desire to go to church. And, he was 24/7 caregiver, and they had a good friend who my dad did a lot of building stuff for this doctor. And he didn't live that far away, and he came over on Sunday mornings so my dad could go to church. And he would go early, and he would be there, one of the first people to make coffee. And, that was very important for him to serve in that way. And, I'm sure he loved chatting with people and, and being able to be ministered to, everything that he was going through with the caring people that understood, some of that difficulty and challenge of caring for somebody, especially somebody that you love. And, so, I got to see all of that. And some of my most favorite memories of my dad were him sitting at the kitchen table in his brown robe in the morning with an open Bible and his cup of coffee. I saw him reading to my mom from the Bible. And, I don't know what was transpiring in the weeks that I wasn't there, but the times that I was able to be there, I witnessed something wonderful. I found out after my dad died that he had been baptized. He never told anybody, but, it was maybe a couple years before he passed away. And he was just thinking about all of this stuff. And, I'm not, you don't have to be baptized to be saved, but it was an outward expression of what was happening inside of him, and he wanted to profess that publicly. Paul and I did the same thing 2 years ago. And God never stops working in our lives. And I am just so thankful for that whole experience of, what I was able to witness. I did see my dad reading to my mom from her Bible, which I have. And here it is. And it's from her Sunday school in Dawson, New Mexico. She was a kid. And I'm hopeful that, she knew the truth at an early age. And, sometimes we can know the right thing, but, life gets in the way and we're led here and there. And I just pray that those seeds were sown, at some point early on. And, I just hope that, I do know that, I myself, I've gotten involved in things that, I later found out that didn't line up with my beliefs. And, it's just being, maturing in my Christian walk. And, that's a daily thing. It never stops. And, it's his light that shines in the dark and reveals the truth. And, Satan is just so good at, blending the lie with the truth sprinkled in, so he makes it all look good. But, there was a couple things like in my mom's Bible. This is my dad's handwriting, and he had flagged certain things. Psalm 23, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He also flagged Psalm 46, Isaiah 40, and in the back of the Bible, I remember this because there's a calendar for daily reading of the scriptures, and I think this is what he was following as he was reading to my mom every day. So, I was curious, though, about what's on their headstone. So I Googled that, too. I'm sure I have that here at home, anywhere. But here's my dad with his simple little cross. And my mom has a cross. There's no Masonic anything. I don't know if you can see it there. I think it's more of her Irish roots. And, they have their own kind of cross. So anyway, that is my hope. And, I talk about Jesus so much because he is the way, the truth, and the life, and the only way to heaven. I don't want anybody to be deceived or led astray. And I never, ever want my family and friends to wonder what I believed or to question where I am after I'm gone. I love you guys.